Hey there! Welcome to SkyGems Academy podcast. At SkyGems Academy, our vision is to build a community of new generation leaders with strong core values, high level of self-awareness, high self-worth, and passionate individuals who will give back to the community and the environment. We are focused on delivering high-quality blended online learning of 21st century life skills delivered and taught online, practiced and perfected offline. Our philosophy is to inspire, educate, and nurture. We work towards inspiring and igniting sparks. We listen, we coach, we fine-tune and accelerate the mastery of 21st century life skills for various age groups. Our blended learning programs are curated from the early years to above 60 years old, as we believe in providing high-quality, lifelong learning for everyone. SkyGems Academy Podcast Series 1: How COVID-19 Transformed the Education Industry. We will take you inside the minds and behind the scenes of 40 exclusive leaders and educators in the education industry. We've interviewed 40 exclusive educators and leaders in the education industry worldwide, starting with China, where the pandemic initially started. You will hear from the leaders in the education industry sharing candidly their views on the possible changes that will take place in the education industry post-COVID-19. Be sure to tune in to SkyGems Academy Podcast Series 1 to listen and learn from the amazing stories, experiences shared, challenges faced, and techniques used by educators in different cities and countries to adapt and overcome their challenges personally as well as professionally in their respective roles in the education industry during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, let's dive into SkyGems Academy Podcast Series 1. Introducing to you our host, Alyssa.
Hey guys, it's Alyssa. Hope everyone is keeping well. SkyGems Academy Podcast is a passion project that my team and I kicked off in early 2020. As we are all facing the unprecedented events and experiences impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, we find that there is an urgent need to unite the global community of educators and leaders to progress forward together. Our main objective is to create a platform for all global leaders and global communities to come together to document these historic moments for our future generations. SkyGems Academy Podcast is a platform for everyone from all around the world to share, listen, learn, communicate, collaborate, and come together to network and help one another to pull through this very challenging period that has impacted the global community. In each episode of SkyGems Academy Podcast Series 1, How COVID-19 Transformed the Education Industry, you will find yourself immersed and engaged in in-depth discussions and thought leadership in various aspects of education, technology, humanity, diversity, disparity, and collaborations in the education space. We are very grateful and sincerely appreciate each and every one of you who has motivated us, encouraged us, contributed in your own very special ways, especially our 40 exclusive guest speakers from all around the world. A big thank you to all and a big shout out to all of you. SkyGems Academy Podcast 28th speaker is John Nicholls. John is the co-director of Bilingual European School in Milan, Lombardy, Italy. He has a master's degree in coaching and mentoring practice and is a published author focusing on resilience and creating positive working environments. John has led coaching skills, facilitation training, and well-being workshops in over 30 countries. He has 28 years experience in education. During this time, he has been a primary and middle school teacher, primary head teacher, and leadership development advisor for the National College of School Leadership in the UK. He ran the award-winning Norfolk Wellbeing Program which not only worked to improve the subjective well-being of 28,000 staff, but also offered professional and personal support to over 400 school principals. In this role, he was also a consultant for the National Work-Life Support Organization. After 5 years in this role, John moved to the International Baccalaureate in Geneva and then The Hague. He recruited and trained and managed the performance of over 1,000 workshop leaders, school visitors, and consultants. John also carried out PYP authorization and verification visits in Africa, Europe, and Middle East, evaluated schools for BSO and North Anglia, and is a lead improvement partner for COBIS, the Council of British International Schools. John shared a heartwarming activity that his school conducted during the COVID-19 pandemic in Milan, Lombardy. I quote and unquote John, "We had 12 different stop-offs in Milan, where the children and parents could come and just basically say hello and happy holidays and wave hello and goodbye to the teachers. The owner of the school was driving in front, came out and gave everyone a flag to wave. We'd say hello to the children from a distance. There has been a big focus on what it means to be a human, what it means to have a good relationship with others. There has to be explicit skills taught around social-emotional skills, but they also need to be woven into everything else we do," said John. Now I'm pleased to introduce you to and present to you to John Nicholls.
Today, we have the honor and pleasure to have Mr. John Nicholls, based in Milan, Lombardy, Italy, joining us in our very special episode of SkyGems podcast. Hi, John. A very good morning to you. A warm welcome to SkyGems podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's lovely to be here.
Thank you, John. It would be nice if you could share with our audience and listeners a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So I've been in the education industry for over 3 decades now, and
Wow.
I've started off in advertising first of all, and then changed to become a teacher, and then have worked in primary education, middle and high schools. I've worked for the International Baccalaureate in The Hague and Geneva. Worked for the North Anglia group of schools in Hong Kong, running leadership programs, and now I'm in a bilingual Italian IB school in Milan as co-director.
Thank you, John. Thank you for your wonderful introduction. Really appreciate your time and joining us all the way from Milan to share with us about your experiences, your vision, and also your encouragement for the listeners during this pandemic period. John, during this pandemic period of COVID-19 that hit us really also suddenly in 2020, and Italy, or especially in Lombardy, is a very badly hit location. We'd like to hear from you. How do you feel about the current COVID-19 pandemic situation that you're in?
Now, it's very interesting because the whole pandemic has been a range of different emotions, really. Yeah. When we first had inkling that there was going to be a problem in Italy, we were kind of thinking, oh, well, it's going to be something small, localized lockdown, won't be too bad. And then as the weeks went by and restrictions got more and more strict and the situation got more scary, obviously our emotions changed then as well. But now we're coming to a situation where we've been through 14 weeks of virtual learning in the school, and we're now preparing for the holidays. We're kind of quite hopeful now and quite proud of the way we've handled it in terms of our resilience, in terms of our creativity. You know, there's a quiet confidence now with all of us in the school that even if we have a second wave or whatever, that we can handle it. I think that's the main thing.
That's really very assuring to hear that the confidence and calmness within the community to manage this pandemic, even though it was really quite sad. Even for me, viewing from all the way from Singapore and also reading and listening, is really emotionally tied to the situation that we all gone through and went through in Lombardy. So I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for sharing that, John. During this period, I'm sure there's some challenges that we all went through and also perhaps still going through. Would you be able to share with us some of the challenges that you faced during this period of time?
Absolutely. So the first challenge was the personal dimension to this. So obviously we had children who were very concerned and worried about the situation, parents the same. and staff. And, we had some of our international teachers, half our staff are international teachers. Some went back home to Canada and America and to England.
Mm-hmm.
Some stayed. And so that had a different dynamic too. There was the whole scale about the community being worried, being panicked, needing reassurance, which we did in a variety of ways. We also found that because we then went very quickly onto a virtual learning platform, that we were buried under a lot of demands from different parts of the community. So teachers wanted certain things to do. Parents had a whole range of demands. Some wanted more online lessons, some wanted less. And the problem is that if you said yes to everything, then our teachers and children would be overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's true.
And a lot of the time it was very well-meaning as well. So there were times when teachers would say, "Oh, I'm going to do this for a set of parents," but that meant that everyone would have to do it. So we had to say no to a lot of things, which, as a creative and vibrant school, we tend to say yes to lots of things rather than no. So that was a big change. And one of the other challenges was we are a bilingual school, but most of the students in the school are from Italian families.
Mm-hmm.
So what that meant is that a lot of those family members aren't that confident in English. So there was a very big concern from the community that the English side of our learning, which is 50% of the learning, was suffering because there wasn't that support there. So those were some of the challenges.
Wow, those challenges are real, and I assume it's already being managed right now or still
Absolutely.
ongoing?
No, managed actually quite well. So.
Fantastic. That's really nice to hear. With the challenges that you faced earlier on and nicely moving towards the resolution, would you be able to share what changes you make to adapt and how do you overcome them?
So what we did with those things, so going back to the changes that we did, I mean, obviously we went online with the learning, and what we did was that we had a mix of synchronous and asynchronous activities. So that then helped in terms of screen time. It also helped in terms of giving it structure as well. So we did that. For our teachers in Canada and America, they taught in the afternoons rather than the morning because of the time differences. So that worked quite well. In terms of the community itself, even before we went virtual, we invited experts to the school to explain what the coronavirus was. And then as soon as we went to a virtual situation, when the situation started looking scarier, we have a fantastic child study team. So, kind of a support for our students with psychologists. And they gave workshops to parents on how to talk to their children about the coronavirus. This was very early on. So, and then we also gave opportunities for parents to have a workshop as well. So the whole thing was about, addressing those fears, giving people the right information and acknowledging the worry around it really as well. So we did that. In terms of the personal support, reached out to our teachers to make sure that they were supported and felt supported. We have a system of parent reps in our schools. So each class has 2 parent reps that we have regular meetings with. When we went online, we ended up having those meetings every week. So that way they could find out exactly what was happening and then sharing that information with parents and then feeding back what the worries were. So we had a very open communication channel as well. And for the bilingual side of things, what we did, we actually brought in a teaching English as a foreign language school from the UK who offered 1 hour of conversational English every week to our students as well. So that was nice, actually. It was a really nice dynamic.
Yeah.
So it was a very different type of teaching style, but it also just gave a novelty to it as well, really.
Exactly. That's very kind and very thoughtful of you to make that happen. Well, thank you for sharing all that. And I really like the way you managed the whole situation and overcome those challenges by care. I think it's the key that I get from it is really care and concern, empathy and compassion that is given to everyone in the community that you were working with by addressing their fear, by taking care of their feelings, and by making sure that it's transparent and open communications throughout the period of time. And that is really important and very thoughtful about bringing English teachers, teaching English as a foreign language. I think that's a nice add-on to the whole program that you have there. Thank you, John, for sharing that. Well, John, during this period, and I'm sure there's a lot of lessons we have all learned and still learning for some. What are the key lessons that you have learned, and would you be able to share with us?
Yeah, so the lessons learned, the first one is that how you approach these things is so important. So from the beginning, we had to be very clear about what we stood for as a school, and to actually make sure that everything that we do goes through that filter. So we are a school that is focused on self-motivated students who want to make a difference to the world. We focus very strongly on working together and modeling that working together. So when we had all the demands come from all different parts of our community, the first thing we did to say, is that going to fit with what we believe in as a school? So I know that some schools found the transition to online learning quite easy in a way, because the style of delivery of lessons was basically just content driven. And so it's quite easy to do that online. It's harder to actually create a virtual classroom where collaboration is still valued, where the whole inquiry-based approach isn't quite as easy online as in a classroom. So, we had to make sure that all the decisions we made helped to make sure that we still had that ethos and that way of teaching. And then the humanity side of things and the community side of things is really important. We're a school of around 400, so we're not a small school, we're not a big school. We believe we are a family. And so, as a family, and we treated it that way, we addressed the fears of our parents and our teachers and our students, because as a family, that's what you do. And the thing that summed it up more than anything else was that last week, we've come to the end of 14 weeks of virtual online learning. Milan is beginning to relax its restrictions. So what the owner of the school did, and it was his idea, and it was a beautiful idea, was he hired a open-top bus. The hop-on, hop-off buses you see everywhere?
Yes, more like a tourist kind of a thing, right? We will go on it to see the London Bridge, for instance, or in Singapore, we go around the city to see what the tourist attractions look like.
Absolutely. He rented one of those, and our teachers basically social distance, but they went on the top of the bus. And then we had 12 different stop-offs in Milan where the children and parents could come and just basically say hello and happy holidays and wave hello and goodbye to the teachers. Wow. So the owner of the school was driving in front, came out and gave everyone a flag to wave, and then basically would stop, we'd say hello to the children from a distance. They didn't get off the bus. And then we went on to the next place, and it just felt so beautiful to have those connections. We had the teachers crying, parents crying, the children crying, lots of happiness and laughter as well. So that kind of summed it up in a way, is the fact that, it's the humanity of it that's most important.
Oh, that is so amazing. And hearing it, just the way you said it, gives me a real heartwarming feeling that this is just so much love, right? So much love and care. And you're right, so much emotions involved. And I myself trying to cope with that as you speak. And I was trying to imagine that the bus that you're all on, the 12 stops that you made, with the flag passing around and all the wave that is going around, and all the smiles and laughter, and also tears of joy, that went through. Is definitely a very emotional time for everyone, but it's a lovely idea. I love it, and I'm sure a lot of people love what you guys did. Thank you so much for sharing that, John. Thank you, John. John, in terms of education industry where we are in, how did you think COVID-19 has changed the industry, and what are your views of the changes that may happen post COVID-19?
I think one of the really big pieces of learning is the inequality in the school systems. And I know that in Italy particularly, we were very proud of the way that we could, within a day, we'd adapted to a virtual online way of learning. But we had a one-to-one iPad program in the school. We'd already been using a lot of the programs, Seesaw and Google Classrooms, that, make this transition so easy. But a lot of the Italian schools, there's no infrastructure for that. The students don't have access to computers or to iPads or whatever. And, in the UK, there's been a lot of debate recently as well about a lot of students don't have access to internet. So what it has highlighted is the fact that there is an inequality there, and that affects how schools can adapt to these sorts of crises. So I think that's the first thing. Second thing is that, often education is talked about as being valued, and in certain parts of the world it's valued much more than others. But actually, the economic impact of schools not being available has been really, really apparent. And I think, a lot of the discussion about getting the economy going globally is we must get the kids back into schools first. So the contribution of education to the whole economy, I think, has been reinforced, which may help in terms of future funding for schools. But I think the biggest learning is around the fact that education isn't about getting content delivered. It's actually a very human, a very social emotional aspects of learning is so important. And I think people realized as they were going online that dynamic of the classroom, that dynamic of the teacher-student relationship is vital. And without it, learning becomes very impoverished. So I think that people are going to say that, we still need to continue with the IT and, developing that in much ways. But I also think people are going to be saying, actually, what we really need to focus on is social emotional health and, encouraging people to have those relationships. So in my view, what's going to happen in the education industry is there will be a focus on infrastructure, but I also think there'll be a big focus on what it means to be human, what it means to have good relationships with others, those things.
Do you think the humanity part, the social emotional health part, would translate into a program or a subject on its own so that we can actually teach that in school? What do you think?
I think it needs to be both ways, actually. I think there needs to be that aspect to be seen as important. So I do think, there needs to be direct skills there, but I also think that needs to be, like everything, I think it needs to be woven through other parts of the curriculum. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are an inquiry-based school. I used to work for the School Laureate, so I believe in a transdisciplinary approach to learning. So there has to be explicit skills taught around social emotional skills, but they also need to be woven through everything else that we do.
I get you, and I think that's spot on there. It has to be interwoven in all the skills and also the way that the whole curriculum is being developed. Yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. Thank you, John. John, would there be a new normal for yourself? Would you be able to share with us your new normal, if there's one?
Yes, we had a while back, before we really had clarity from the Italian government about what was going to happen in the schools, we wanted to focus the school community on the future rather than the present, when the scary present.
Yes.
So we created a very grand document which we call the 4 pillars. And basically what we did is we planned, and we're still planning, around hygiene, excellent curriculum, flexibility, and well-being. So those are the 4 areas that we focus on as we make the plans for the new normal. So obviously the hygiene is looking at what we need to do to ensure safety of the students. Curriculum is making sure that any aspects that have been neglected because of the virtual aspect of our learning is readdressed and strengthened. That flexibility, because we're not quite sure what the new normal is going to look like. And then well-being, so having that as a really strong focus of the school. So we have we have plan A, plan B, and plan C for all of those things. And we think those 3 plans will help the school, whether we go back to a virtual reality completely, whether we go back to having half the children there, or whether we go back to having everybody back in the school. So in terms of new normal, our focus is on those 4 pillars.
Thank you for sharing very level of detail as your thought process and the execution of it. Thank you, John.
Okay.
John, now we come to a very important part of the podcast episode. We would like to hear from you, your messages for the future generations. And
I think the future generations will be in the same situation as other generations. Every generation has its joys, and every generation has its worries. And they just look in different ways in terms of the tools that they're accessible to future generations, but also in terms of how people can address them. And I think my message is that if you can actually critically analyze issues with compassion, with calmness, and with an open mind, then these issues in the future can be solved in a much better way. But I also feel that sometimes when we're looking into the future, we always look in a worried way. And I think what we need to do is we need to look at it from a joyful way. The way that we look at the world, looking out the window now, I've got, can see beautiful trees, I've got beautiful sky here today. Sometimes if we focus too much on the problems, we forget that actually life is a joyful experience and there's so much beauty in the world, so many lovely relationships, so many fascinating things about our world and how it works, that we need to have that joyful wonder first and then get stuck into solving the problems.
Thank you, John. That's a lovely message to the future generations. Joyful wonder world. Stay calm and be open-minded. I love that. And I'm sure all of us will be able to learn and also value add to our own lives by thinking this way and moving this direction. Thank you so much, John, for sharing. John, once again, a great pleasure and privilege to have you on SkyGems podcast episode for today. We sincerely appreciate your time and your sharing. We look forward to seeing you, hopefully in person, in Italy, if not in Singapore one day. And I look forward to catching up with you real soon. Stay safe and stay strong. Thank you, John.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful day.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode at SkyGems Academy Podcast Series 1 on the topic of how COVID-19 transformed the education industry. If you enjoyed today's episode and you love the vision and mission of SkyGems Academy, can you please help us to convince others to tune in to SkyGems Academy Podcast too? Please kindly subscribe to SkyGems Academy Podcast. Please also kindly leave a quick review and rate SkyGems Academy Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor.fm, Breaker, and various SkyGems Academy's podcast channels. That would mean the world to us, so thank you so much for your support. Visit our website at www.skygemsacademy.com to find out more about our distinguished speakers and about SkyGems Academy. We appreciate you and your continuous support. Thank you for tuning in to SkyGems Academy Podcast. High five and peace out!